Hi, I'm
Hello
Jen.
again, I'm Brian.
Welcome to Studio Conversations. I wanted to talk to you a little bit because you have an interesting thing going on in DC at the Arts Club where you're part of a fellowship.
Yeah, so it's a fellowship program through the DC Arts Center, and it's called kind of like the Spark Plug Collective. And it's an assemblage of, I think, about 10, 12 artists in various stages of their career. So you have some artists who have just gotten out of school, you have artists like myself who have been kind of working in their practice for a fair amount of time. In my case, it's been about 10 years, 10, 12 years. Um, and then you also have people who are maybe, and I guess I should say I'm kind of in middle age, but you're also with a group of people who include people that are more in like their 60s, 70s who have either started an artistic career later in life or who have been primarily focused on their teaching side of their artistic practice and are looking to explore their craft or I guess collaborate, connect with different types of artists, or get to know other aspects of the DC art scene. So it's kind of a mixed group of people, and I think they deliberately do that to encourage different perspectives, different ideas, because each artist, like for myself, being an abstract artist, I'm working amongst people who do sculpture, people who do video art, people who do more representational work. So you get a very diverse kind of set of perspectives.
Absolutely. How do you feel like it's shaping you right now?
Well, I think what's been the most beneficial aspect for me has been, and I guess it's kind of something I needed an external source to provide, is sort of the license to just experiment, um, and kind of deliberately set aside the voices that would tell you that things have to be a very specific way. And kind of the moderator of the program, Bridget, gave gives us kind of like homework assignments, and so they're kind of almost meditative exercises, thinking about our practice, how we come to art, what our values are. And for myself, a lot of those values come from taking risks within the work, and favoring spontaneity, or trying to push what I can do rather than just trying to create something good. And I found I kind of had lost some of that play, in just kind of refining my technique. And so I began to explore just incorporating more mixed material, kind of some sculpture elements with using plaster on canvas and on panel, and just trying to, and also the biggest thing is not looking at other art. Just kind of giving yourself the total sense of authority with your work.
You're sovereign.
Yeah, your sovereignty. And as something Bridget has said, and we've really resonated with this, is that you're the expert of your work.
Absolutely.
No one knows your work better than you.
No one knows you. No one can know you. Everybody you meet knows a different you, right? And so the only person that knows the you that lives inside of your body that you meet every day is you. That is it. And so the biggest thing for me is, I think people look at artists as like always playing, but it's really easy for it to become a job, for it to become a thing where you go in the studio and you create the same thing over and over and over again for years at a time. And you can stagnate and get bored. And if you're not out meeting other people, you're just living in your own brain. And so it's very, very, very important to never lose play.
Yes. And this, even you can become stuck in creating the same thing or the same style, even if you're not necessarily selling a lot of work.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you have a signature. You have something that people can recognize, and so then there's a security there in knowing that you're presenting a coherent work to a gallery or an art center for an exhibit. So there's still that feeling of, I can't give this up because it's what people know.
Well, I mean, think about music. I'm big into music, and you look at the punk scene that I've been part of for, love so much. But so much of it is you're a poser, you're a sellout, you're this, you're that, all over the place. And it kind of can discourage experimentation and play, which is what ultimately creativity should be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's quite interesting.
But it's funny you bring up the kind of poser, and one of the things that I struggle with, and I know you do, and as well, is kind of that sense of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And certainly for myself right now, as I get ready to kind of present the body of work I've been putting together for this fellowship, kind of in the midway point of the program, I really doubt myself. I feel like it's terrible. It's not stuff, just using different materials or things like that. I feel like all these other people have done that. It's not my right to explore that because other people have done it better. And so.
But no one can do it like you.
Yeah.
Somebody could try to copy anybody all day long. It's still not going to be a complete copy.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way, because it's not your energy, it's not your brain, it's not your hands bringing it to life. But yeah, I get the same way with my books. You know what I mean? With my art, sometimes I'm getting a little stagnated feeling on my art, so it's time to kind of switch it up a little bit. Where like I'm going back to working with cardboard and cutting things and putting assemblage and putting things together, because it stagnates. I don't care how far, but you go into this imposter brain of like, what if I change it? No one, who cares? It's your life, it's your work. And I remember going back to when I was at FCC and I was studying art there, and it was the minute somebody said you don't use white in watercolor or something, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And some people get mad at me because I would try what they were saying not to do. But I wanted to know why. If it's art and creativity, why are you boxing me? Why are you doing this?
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many implied rules in something that's supposed to be kind of so open. And it can be very frustrating.
Well, and I mean, having boundaries in certain things is important
Mm-hmm.
at times, because if you didn't have anything, it would almost feel maybe too overwhelming to do anything. But there's this whole, like, I think you got to let go of the notion of creating good art. What is good? Everything's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to get those voices out of your brain. Like, I have a mentor in painting and they give you information, but does that mean that he's right about my work? Maybe what he says is right about his work, but it might not be right about mine.
Right.
And so I have to be willing to set certain things down into play, just like you.
Well, and also, even if someone is your mentor or a respected figure, I mean, they are just people. They're fallible, and
Mm-hmm.
they can get stuck in their own routines as well, and their work might be in a place that's kind of stagnated too. And they're kind of providing opinions or judgments based on that stagnation as opposed to maybe moving beyond that.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, my biggest thing is once you start setting plateaus for yourself, it's easy to sit there and not go beyond it. But I never want to paint the same painting over and over and over again. I think that's so boring.
Yeah.
It's like, if I live to be 80, 90 years old, I would love to see what I'd be creating then. And I hope it's vastly different. I hope it's something really exciting. It's not knocking any of the work that I've done or that I do now, but the whole point is to keep evolving,
Mm-hmm.
at least to me.
Yeah, I mean, as an artist and as a person too. I mean, it's important to kind of keep growing and keep challenging yourself in some way.
Yeah, it's like my hair,
Mm-hmm.
and that's another thing that I found interesting is once somebody said, who are you to talk about beauty when you'd be willing to shave your head into a mohawk? And I'm like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Because to me, when I first saw one with mohawks, I thought they were beautiful, right? So everybody has an opinion about
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hit those stagnated points in my life, one of the first things I do is I do something really drastic with the way I look, because that's part of my personality. And so it doesn't have anything necessarily to do with art on a canvas or a piece of paper, but it signifies to me a ritual that's like I'm letting that crap go.
Yeah. And ultimately, I mean, the thing that you have to make peace with in living true to that pursuit is not everyone's going to like it.
Not everyone's going to like it. You're not for everybody. I always say I might only be for a handful of people, but if they find me and I'm able to guide them on their way and stuff, then great. Mm-hmm. If my work resonates with certain people, I'm happy with that. But I'm not for everybody. I'm limited edition. That's okay.
Well, definitely as I go through kind of the second half of this fellowship program, we'll have to share some videos about it and
Yeah.
kind of your own, what you're doing to kind of break out your I guess, creative rut with your art,
Yeah.
the visual side of your art.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've been feeling pretty separate from it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of writing.
Yes.
And a lot of singing and a lot of different things like that, but not as much art. And so when I go to meet it, it feels very far.
Mm-hmm.
And how to bridge that gap, and it's going to be interesting to see how that happens.
It's like in your universe, you've got that planet sort of drifted out a little bit in the orbit, so you gotta like pull it back in somehow.
Yeah, but it's kind of just the way I work sometimes. But I'm kind of getting more used to setting myself some realistic goals of like, let me just sit with some of my work, even if I don't even do anything. I just sit with it for a while every day, even if it's 10-15
Yeah.
minutes.
So important.
It is. It's very important to look at your own work and to sit with it
Mm-hmm.
and let it speak to you and just see what's happening, because otherwise you're very removed from it.
Yeah, I find that the more you spend time with the work, the actual physical part of painting, that time spent kind of, I wouldn't say becomes less, but it becomes a bit more focused. Even if you're not analyzing every single thing, there's sort of a confidence because you've been sitting with it and having a dialogue, even if it's kind of invisible.
Yeah, absolutely. It speaks to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Everything has an energy and it speaks to you. But you push your painting out, or you allow the painting to flow, whatever terminology you want to use, because sometimes it's more pushing feeling and other times it's more flowing feeling. And you let that go. It's not a part of me anymore. It's a part of something else. I'm giving it to the world at that point. So then if you don't sit with it, you kind of forget about it sometimes. It's almost like you just channel it through and it's gone. But it's important to really look at what you've done.
Yeah.
And to also give yourself props for what you've done too. To say, hey, I'm not a fraud. I'm actually out here creating. There's no rule. I want to put that out there. No matter what archetype exists, there is no rule of what it means to be an artist. Everybody thinks you're an imposter because there's these so-called rules. Maybe you're supposed to be up all night, burning the midnight oil, painting. If I don't paint 8 hours a day, I can't be an artist. If I'm not selling all my work, I'm not an artist. That's all a bunch of bull. It's not true. If you're out there creating, living life on your own terms and stuff, you're an artist. If you're living, you're an artist. You have to get up and get dressed every day. That's its own art form. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think it's a good place to stop.
absolutely. So,
All right.
we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
See ya.